In this video, I'll be letting you know my Fiji starting 15 that I'd love to see heading into this Rugby World Cup, which is only around a week away, but we will jump straight into it. Looking at the front row, I feel that these three men have proven that they are definitely the best options. Number 1, Aroni Maui. Number 2, Sam Matavesi. And number 3, Luke Tangi. Now, we did see all three of these men playing in the last game when the Fijians were able to get themselves a historic victory over the English, and I feel that the front row really held their own throughout the scrums, and it's been talked about a lot recently in the way that these Fijians, Samoan, Tongan, all these Pacific Island nations have been able to well and truly step up in the scrummaging department, not getting forced back anymore, maybe because of that big physicality that they do bring to the game, but also because of the skill that is coming through these sides. And Fiji, they are no different. Like I mentioned, Luke Tangi, Aroni Maui, two brilliant scrummagers, also bringing a lot to the table outside of the scrums, whether it is going to be a breakdown, clean out, or the rolling maul of the Fijians help getting it on the front foot. But of course, you cannot have a rolling maul without the man throwing it straight. And Sam Matavesi, his accuracy this year throughout the Pacific Nations Cup, as well as the Rugby World Cup warm-up games, has been very solid. So that is why I go with him as the number 2. Now, Tavita Ikanaviri, also a very good option here. They could go either way in that department, but I feel for the props, Luke Tangi the last couple of weeks has really proved himself. Aroni Maui seems to be a very good option, and then maybe Koroi Duadua or someone along those lines coming off the bench. But looking through at the locks, it's actually a combination they have gone with a couple times as of late, and that is a Soana Silasila at number 4 and then number 5, Te Ahuaru Thurikadavita. Now, I've been following this man's career for a relatively long time. Thurikadavita has been playing for the Tasman Marcos back in the day, and as soon as he got signed to the Fijian draw, I was extremely excited to see what this man was going to be able to do and the versatility that he has. He doesn't just play lock, he also offers a couple of those loose forward trio positions, so it makes him very handy whether he's in the starting lineup or coming off the bench. The fact that he can play so many positions may actually mean he's more likely to come off the reserves bench throughout this Rugby World Cup, but I've really enjoyed watching the combination of him and a Soana Silasila, who's been able to get line-out turnovers and also quite a few running meters alongside it. But now moving on to the loose forward trio. Number 6, a man who didn't play in that match up against the English, but I still feel from what we've seen throughout Super Rugby Pacific, as well as the Pacific Nations Cup, he is the man I'd like to see at number 6, and that is Meri Derialangi. Now, like I mentioned, he wasn't part of that English win, but from what we've seen in the rest of the games, just offers that physicality. Also is able to have a bit of a leadership role, even though he has got only his debut this year, which is absolutely astounding. To think that this man hasn't got international caps before 2023, and now I'm talking about him being a future captain, but he is that good. He's brilliant for the Drua, and I'm sure he'll be brilliant for the Fijians throughout the Rugby World Cup. But number 7, this is a little bit of an interesting position because you have got options like Lavani Botia. You've got Kamita as another man who has been playing that number 7 jersey. But the man that I'm going to be going with, I feel really stepped up in that last game up against England. And I know you shouldn't base a player off just one performance, but I have a feeling that this man has got a few blinders just around the corner, and that is Lakema Tangi Valu. So that is why I go with him at number 7. They could easily go with Lavani Botia and still find that same success. Just from that last game, I feel like Tangi Valu's got something special that the Fijians, with the form that he's in, need to try and capitalise on. And then at number 8, another man who's been in some pretty decent form as of late, Viliami Mata. Now, he did play a little bit throughout the Pacific Nations Cup. It's been in the Rugby World Cup warm-up games, though, that we've started to see him go up and up in terms of that form. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets that number 8 jersey ahead of Albert Tuisui, who they may look to play off the bench or maybe even starting at lock for the Rugby World Cup. Now moving on to the back line. I feel like that 4-pack, we didn't stray away too far from what a lot of people would decide to have. Number 9, Simeone Kuravuli. Now, I know a lot of people would have Frank Lamani as their starting halfback for a majority of these games in the Rugby World Cup. But I just feel the impact that we've seen from Kuravuli. When he comes off the bench, he's brilliant. When he started the match of the Pacific Nations Cup, when he was given that opportunity, he was able to step up. Lamani offers a lot when it comes to that halfback jersey, and I'm wondering whether or not he would be more impactful coming off the bench rather than being in that starting side. But yeah, I would go with Kuravuli as my starting number 9, as controversial as it may be. But number 10, I feel like last week's game up against England helped cement this man as the fly half moving forward. There were talks of whether or not Ben Bulavula should have been included in the Fijian Rugby World Cup squad. But I think from the performances that we've seen from this young man, and the performances hopefully that he'll be able to continue having in the future, Caleb Muntz could easily be that Fijian fly half. Not only is he kicking at a very decent accuracy, but he's also playing a lot more wise than his age. And that is a bit of a weird statement, but the way he is using his vision for this backline, whether it's a skip pass or a little bit of a cross kick, which the Fijians of course love to throw in there every once in a while, Muntz has been doing it very well. And I hope to see a lot more of him at number 10 throughout this Rugby World Cup. I know a lot of people would pick him ahead of Tuteitela, and I am one of those people who would put Muntz as the starting fly half. Now moving into the centres. This is a very tricky one because we've got an injured Fijian who is just around the corner from returning, that being Joshua Tuisova. But surprisingly, he is nowhere to be seen in my backline. That may be a little bit based off the injury, but also based off form for the Pacific Nations Cup. He's an absolutely phenomenal talent, but he doesn't make it into my side. Instead, I've got number 12, Semi Radradra, and number 13, Waisianaya Thalevu. Now, Radradra, in that last game up against the English, we didn't see a huge amount of him compared to some of those performances in the Pacific Nations Cup. He was a super sub in one of those games, outstanding in another one. But he is one of those players that even when he has a poor performance one week, he's going to be able to give you a 10 out of 10 the week after. So that is why you've got to have him somewhere in that starting side, because even his poor performances are still about a 7 out of 10. And a lot of sides would take that every day of the week. On the outside, Waisianaya Thalevu working brilliantly in that last game up against the English, alongside some of those other men in the back line. And a lot of those men I have decided to keep in that Fijian starting 15, as you will find out from the back three. Number 11, Vinaya Habosi. Didn't get to play throughout the Pacific Nations Cup, but now that we're into the Rugby World Cup warm-up games, we are now starting to see why that man got himself a contract for Racing 92 after his debut Fijian Drua season. He was the leading try scorer for the Drua. Osefu Masi this year was able to beat that record, but Vinaya Habosi, when he gets the opportunity to break through a tackle, well and truly takes it and normally manages to cross the try line. He was able to do so in the game up against England. I almost guaranteed that he would be able to cross the try line once in that game. And luckily, he did prove me right. So Vinaya Habosi, he's got that number 11 jersey locked in my opinion. We will have to wait and see what the selectors do on the right wing. A man who also, I feel, now has his position locked in after his stellar man of the match performance in the last contest. It is Celestino Ravatamande. He was able to put on a clinical performance, defending very well, even though that first try for England was scored down his wing. After that, he was given absolutely everything, making line breaks, finding offloads, and just being a real threat in the Fijian backline. And I like the combination of him and Caleb Muntz. They seem to work together quite well. They were on the same wavelength when Muntz was going for those wide cutout passes and also for those cross kicks. Now that leaves just the one position, and that is the fullback. This has been heavily talked about in terms of who will be the starting 15 for the Fijians moving forward. There are two men in the running at the moment in a lot of people's opinions. One of which is Eliza Druasisi, and the other is Sareli Mangwala. So the options are pretty decent. Sareli Mangwala, he's not the most popular man at times with the way that he plays, but it can't be denied that when he gets it right, he is extremely effective. Eliza Druasisi, we saw a lot more of him for the Fijian Drua throughout the Super Rugby Pacific season. Seemed to gel quite nicely with a few of those other men in the backline, which is perfect because of how many Fijian Drua players have made their way into this Fiji side for the Rugby World Cup. And that is why I'm going with Eliza Druasisi as the last man in my Fijian starting lineup that I would go with for quite a few of these games. And those games are going to be very exciting that the Fijians play in. They're a part of Pool C alongside Australia, Wales, Georgia and Portugal. That is a pool that is anyone's for the taking. So if you can get yourself a couple big wins early, perhaps the quarterfinals is just around the corner. But do let me know who you would have in your Fijian Starting XV in the comments down below. I'm very interested to see what you guys would change and who you would keep from my starting side as well. But thank you all very much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all for the next one.